For those of you who don't know me or what I do, I know you see me pointing a stick often on Sunday mornings, but the bigger arch of my job is to lead all worship here at Epiphany. And that includes planning special services like weddings and baptisms and funerals. And last week, Dwight talked about the theology of death. And so now that you're all prepared for death, we'll talk about what happens here on earth. And so this is kind of the logistics of planning a service. Because I buried my father about a year ago, I have a little bit of insight into kind of the secular what to do as well. And I'm sure you'll have lots of things that you'll be able to share. So this is planning a funeral or memorial service at Epiphany. And I'd like to start by saying the statistic of the day is that 100%, I mean, that's a great amount of people sitting in this room will die sometime in the future. So 100%, that is very hard in any other statistic to make. But there is good news. My sheep hear my voice, I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. That is the promise of eternal life. Our life here on earth, as I was telling a couple of people earlier, in the face of eternity is but a blip, right? Eternity, well, my arms aren't long enough. Eternity goes on and on and on. Our time here on earth is limited. And so when a person passes away, we lose that relationship face to face. We still have those memories. We still have those thoughts. We still have their love. It's just we can't see them anymore. We don't know what exactly happens, but what we do know is that we are eternal beings, and we will be together again someday. And the time that we are apart will be but a blip. Dallas Willard calls it a comma, maybe misplaced in a sentence, depending on how the separation occurs, whether it's instant or over time. So we're going to talk about why do we have funerals? And so there's two reasons. We want to get the dead to where they need to go and get the living to where they need to be, right? So funerals are considered celebrations of life. They're a time to come together and celebrate the person and to grieve. That is very much a natural part of the process. And so it allows us to send their souls to God liturgically, and to also send ourselves into whatever the future happens to be for us. And so I wanted to talk about, I use the word funeral and memorial service, celebration of life, all those things interchangeably. However, there are some differences. So the basic elements of a funeral is that the body, the casket or the remains of someone who has died are present at the service. And then, of course, there's the people to whom that person mattered at the service. There's a brokered status of change between them. That is the letting go, the giving on to God. And so that's the service. And the disposition of the dead, that we call that the commendation. That's giving the soul to God. Now, a memorial service, on the other hand, has someone who has died, but their remains or their body is not present. That's the main difference, because there's still people to whom that death matters. There's still a brokered change of status between them, like a service. But the disposition of the dead, we don't usually do. And so we're going to go through these things, and I even have a handout for you of things you need to do to prepare for a service at Epiphany. It's a long checklist. And let me tell you, when you are in new grief, it is really hard to make these decisions. If you are the one that's passed away, you're not making those decisions at all, but it is difficult for those who are making the decisions on your behalf. So the more that you can be prepared to have a service for yourself, or if you have a loved one, to plan it with your loved one, the easier that transition will be. Now, I want a word of caution. Years ago, we planned a service for a wonderful woman who had been a parishioner, and her son, whom I'd never met, came in, and he had this manila envelope. It was about this thick. And he comes in and he goes, "Here's my mom's plans for her funeral." I said, "Great, let's go through it together." And we opened it up, and there were lessons chosen and hymns chosen, all lovely. Eulogies, it said, "I want so-and-so to read." And I'm like, "Do you know who that is?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Well, I'm wondering if we can find it. Let's go on to the next person. Do you know who this is?" "Yes, but they've moved to Idaho." "Okay, well, do you know how to contact them?" "Yes." "Okay, there's someplace where we can go." Next person, "Do you know this person?" "Yes, but they're no longer able to get out. They're in an assisted living home in Milwaukee." So making those decisions, you maybe don't want to exactly put a name with particular readings and eulogies. You can definitely give a list of suggested people for your loved ones to get in contact with, but for actually saying, "I want this person to read this reading," it's maybe not so helpful if the person planning the service can't find them. That's just kind of an aside. So you're going to choose those readings. You're going to choose the readers. Now, yesterday we had a lovely service for Joe Pope, who died a few weeks ago, and they chose not to have any eulogies, which is perfectly acceptable. And what they did is after the service, during the reception, that's when people stood up and read their eulogies. And Kate did the homily, which included some elements of her life, and she also had an obituary in the back where people could read about her. So that's also an option. Rite 1 or Rite 2, if you're an 8:45 person, you're familiar with Rite 2. If you're an 11 o'clock service person, you're probably familiar with Rite 1. Again, this is a personal preference, either yours or the person you're planning the funeral with. If the person you're planning the funeral for hasn't been to church since before 1978, you might want to use Rite 1 because that's what they would have been familiar with, but it really doesn't matter. The format is the same. It's just, are you going to say thee and thou and thy? And put THs on the end of words. Communion or no communion? Here's where you need to think about the people who are attending the service. If everybody there, or most people there, are very familiar with the Eucharist, then put it in. If most people there are not, then put it in if you want it. All right? It's really your preference as to whether or not to have it, okay? And the priests, when they do the welcome, will always invite everyone. We have an open table. And there's people that have come up and have never, ever received communion, and it means something to them. So it's just something to consider. It doesn't add much time to the service. You can still get to the reception in plenty of time. You get to choose the music, and that packet that Brian handed out has a list of hymns that Zach has put together. They are not exhaustive. Really, you can choose any hymn you want from our hymnal. If it's a hymnal, you know, those Methodists or those Lutherans, best to run it by Zach. He may steer you in a different direction, but he may not. He may say, "Oh, that's great. That's wonderful." There's also other music. Some decisions about whether you want to have a soloist or whether you want to have a quartet or whether you want a full choir. And there are suggestions for pieces that are in the repertoire of some of our soloists and also for our choir. But again, if there's something that you really want that isn't on that list, talk to Zach. Okay, he's pretty amenable. If you want flowers, you do not have to have flowers, But if you want flowers on the altar, then you will need to take care of that. And in there are listed 2 florists that deliver to us. You're welcome to use other ones. It's just that they know our sanctuary. A little story, we had a wedding years ago, and the bride wanted roses. That's all she wanted were roses. Gorgeous roses. She had 4 dozen white roses in each of the urns up by the altar, but they looked like ice cream cones because that the florist didn't know our space. And so just using one of the florists that knows our space, or at least letting me send them a picture, is super helpful. A caterer. There's 4 caterers, I think, that are listed in the back of the bulletin. Again, those are just suggested because they know our space. And it just makes it a little bit easier on them and a little easier on the family or you, depending on who's planning the service. But again, you can do it with anyone. You can even do it yourself. However, it's very difficult in time of grief to plan the reception as well. So that's just a kind of a hint. A picture to the church, to me, to put on the front of the bulletin. That's always nice to have. Not mandatory, but you can. An obituary, if you want the obituary in the bulletin itself, send that to me and I'll put it in. And then sometimes people want poems or other things that meant a lot to them or to their deceased, and I'm happy to put those in. I think yesterday there was a quote from Julian of Norwich in the bulletin that was important to Joe. So those things are all part of it. And this checklist is directly from that booklet that you have right there. And so that's basically how you put a service together. And I tell people it lasts an hour, maybe 50 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. One thing some people ask me a lot is, well, what do I do? I'm having the person, their cremains, I'm having them placed in Epiphany's Columbarium. What size niche or what size urn do I need to buy? And I tell them, don't buy an urn. Buy a cardboard box or a plastic container. Sometimes they won't do cardboard because we have beautiful brass urns that exactly fit in our niches that it will go into. If you're planning on scattering the cremains someplace else, again, it's up to you, but you really don't need one of these beautiful urns. And having the cremains at the service, we cover them with a veil. Nobody knows what's under the veil. We don't lift it up. Which brings me to our columbarium. This is our columbarium. You can see that there are 2 walls of it. The first wall is the wall you see up here. It was built in 1997. And when we filled it, we started in the middle with Haiti Newman, who died in 1997. And we've spread out, and every single one of those niches is sold. We don't reserve space unless there is a family member already in the columbarium, and then you can reserve a space next to them. But other than that, we don't reserve space. So where you see those empty places, that means that somebody has bought that niche that is next to someone who has passed away. Our new one, we started in the upper left-hand corner and are kind of going across. So there's 108 niches in the original one. There are 54 in the new one. All but 10 are sold. So we are coming up against another time of needing to expand our columbarium. And so that will be happening in the very near future. So stay tuned for details on that. And definitely, we will still be able to work out the details for a niche for you, even if we don't have a space right this second. If you want space in the columbarium, you need to set up an appointment with me, and I'll go through the paperwork with you. It's very easy to do the paperwork, but I don't want to hand it out ahead of time, mostly because if you know anything about the price of gold, it is up and down and up and down and up and down. And so that is the main cost of engraving, is the price of gold, because that is gold leaf on the Columbarium. When the Columbarium was put in 1997, gold was $289 an ounce. It is now over $4,200 an ounce and has no sign right now of slowing down. So it just really depends on the price of gold. So that's why when you want to buy a niche, come to me, and we will sell it to you at the price then, and hope it doesn't go up too much. So that's basically kind of my whole pitch about funerals, but I know you have lots of questions because they come up every time I work with families, and I have to tell you, it is the greatest blessing of what I do here at Epiphany. I find it just a true gift to be able to sit with families and to help them come up with a service that honors their loved ones, and then to be in the service and then to reflect with them afterwards. In my files right now, I have files for 10 parishioners who have planned their own funerals. And so that I highly recommend to you if you're thinking about it. I keep saying, oh, I want this hymn, this hymn, this hymn, this reading, this reading, this reading. I don't write it down. And if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, nobody's going to know that. I expect Doit and Kate and Terry to put that together because I've told them. But in reality, they probably won't remember. And so it would end up being something that they think would mean a lot to me, which is fine. But if you want it written down, or you want us to know, what?
Members, stand up for Jesus.
We'll do just fine, don't worry.
I'm a little worried. So I just keep those in my file, and I have had one person recently who gave me their funeral plan, and then he changed his mind. He said, no, I don't want that hymn. I don't want that hymn at the sequence. I want this one. And so he gave me another hymn. So that's fine. I just put it in, and we'll be good to go. And if he changes his mind again, that's okay too. So there's about 10 of them that I have already. And so and then one person who recently passed away thought she had given her plans, and we couldn't find them. And so making sure you get them to a reputable person is is helpful. We did actually eventually find them before the service. So I welcome any questions, any things you'd like to ask me about funerals. Carrie?
I just want to know if Dwight and Kate are going to stay here till I die.
We definitely won't be here that long.
Well, there you go. So make sure you write it down.
Yeah, I'll write that down, as a must.
So have you looked through? Is there anything that's confusing in the clip?
You use the word brokered in description. I don't understand what that means.
So brokered is a between you and me. But in this case, it's between you, the family, and God. Okay, it's that.
Diane, could you repeat the question? You didn't get it on.
Oh, yeah. So he asked me what brokered meant. When I talked.
Brokered changes status. That's to me a Turkish term. Anyway,
Yeah, so it is, the person has gone from earth to eternity, right? So they've changed their status. So
sound like you're doing a deal.
it is a deal. It isn't negotiable, it happens, you're right. Eileen?
I hate
Yeah.
these. If the person does not want to have a service, can they still be interred in the columbarium?
Oh, for sure. Okay. There's we have like a 5 to 10 minute service, but it's just a template. So we can do other things as well. We've had people just come, and that's when they did their eulogies.
Oh, okay.
And that's all they wanted. They didn't want the prayers and that sort of thing. So, or, since they didn't have a service in the church, that could be the service.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So don't you want to come do some more riffing on death? No. Kelly?
I've noticed at some funerals or some services, sometimes the tone is different. So the tone, there might be a celebratory tone, other times there might be a quieter tone or even a more somber tone. What is that? Is that the Holy Spirit? Is that the readings? Is that the person who's passed? Do you do anything to engender that? Or is it just something that just happens?
That's a great question. It really is dependent on the person planning the service. I mean, when you start a service, how we started the service yesterday, which is, what's the hymn?
Oh gosh, I forgot the hymn that we used.
What's the one we sing at Easter?
Oh, Bread of Life.
I am the bread of life.
I'll
Sorry.
raise them up. Yeah,
I am the bread of life. That is a celebratory hymn. That is a resurrection, right? Hymn. So that just set the tone for the whole service of being more celebratory. But sometimes especially if a person dies very suddenly, the whole tone of the service is much more somber. So it just really depends.
Okay.
Yes.
So having done a couple of these, I would say the things that I've witnessed over the years with regards to sort of the tone of a service is music, having a choir there sort of adds some vitality. It depends on the congregation. So when we do services like Joe's and like Bob Barnes is a great example, Bob died. When church people come, they have a certain perspective on death, right? And while it is a bummer, but it's also a point of transition, or as Clip likes to say, brokered transition. And so there's a joy, right, in the idea of what it means to be in eternal relationship with God, and that is reflected out in the congregation, right? So if you have a congregation and it's all sad and all morose, it's the worst thing, and they don't necessarily have a perspective broader than the material, it can be a little bit about how I'm feeling now because I feel bad because I missed the person that's gone. That's all okay. But as Christians and people that come to Epiphany, we also believe there's something else, right? That while I may miss that person, God doesn't, because God's relationship with them continues on. And so I do think it depends a little bit on the congregation. It depends on the music. It depends on the choir. Sometimes it depends on the age of the person. I mean, I always find the older the person, the fewer people. Right? Because a lot of their friends are gone, right? But then, younger folks, funerals are a lot bigger and sometimes a little more startled that somebody young died. So it depends. It depends really on, I think, the tone of the person, the tone of their journey, and the congregation's reflection of that. What'd you say?
Absolutely. When Bob died, Dwight's comment was, good for Bob, bad for us, because it was Holy Week. And so, but that service, even in his youth, was a wonderful celebration of his life. And yesterday with Joe's service, her comment, may I share, Kate? Before she died this is kind of fun. So she was ready to make that journey, ready to go be face to face with God. So it makes it more joyful. Alice?
I don't notice anything in here about the military recognition, and where do you want that if And how is that done? Do you work with the military, or does the family work with the military?
That's a great question. So I will definitely add it to the sheet. So the way the military honors works is the family calls up the military, and they have to have proof that the person served, and then they will send at least a bugler and usually 2 people that will unfurl the flag, roll it up, and present it to the next of kin. And we do that right at the end of the service, right before the last hymn. And it really is especially for people to which the military was a very important part of their life. It's a very, I don't know the right word, it's not somber, but it's very honorable, that's a good word, part of the service. So thank you, Alice. I will definitely add that
Thank
in.
you.
Somebody else had a question. Just a second, clip.
Need this? Anyway, yeah, my wife died a little bit more than a year ago. And one of the themes, aside from truly a celebration of life, is the legacy the person has left to the children, to the grandchildren, to the community. I think that's so important. That's one of the reasons we're here, is to help people that are still here to grow and serve the Lord.
It is. It's relationship, right?
It's more than that. To me, it's more than relationship, but that's an important part of it.
Oh, you went. Look, we'll get you another one, Gary. So if there aren't any other questions, if you want to set up an appointment for the Columbarium, please get in contact with me. If you want to have an appointment to talk about the funeral plans, please get in touch with me, whether they're for yourself or whether they're for someone else. And I know the planning is a little bit different. I find great joy in planning my funeral, even though I've planned it so many times, and it changes the more that I do this, because somebody will come along with something in a funeral that they've chosen. I go, oh, that is so neat. I want that in my funeral. And so changes can be made. So I appreciate your coming and being here. And I hope, so in 3 weeks' time, November 9th, on November 9th, Mark Lucero will be here. He's a local author. He lives up on Whidbey Island, and he's written a book on grief and grieving. And so he'll be here on November 9th. On November 16th, Nicola Davies is doing another workshop on grief through art. So I encourage you to do that. So it's kind of the theme of the fall, with a couple of other forums thrown in. So I encourage you to come to one or both of those, as well as the one next week, which is done by Service and Outreach on refugee resettlement. So thank you very much for coming.